Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Mary set out in those days and traveled to the hill country in haste to a town of Judah, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the infant leapt in her womb, and Elizabeth, filled with the Holy Spirit, cried out in a loud voice and said, "Most blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And how does this happen to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For the moment the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the infant in my womb leaped for joy. Blessed are you who believed that what was spoken to you by the Lord would be fulfilled." The Gospel of the Lord. The prophet Zephaniah, who's often seen as a doom and gloom prophet, is just full of joy this morning as he is announcing the good news. And John the Baptist leaps in the womb of his mother Elizabeth, and Mary, bursting with joy over her own pregnancy and her cousin's pregnancy and the understanding that the Messiah now is on the way. What joy here. And yet at the same time, the sorrow that is all wrapped in this. The two women here who would see their children die before they do. See the death of their own children. In the funerals that I've done, it's one of the most heartbreaking things I've seen for mothers to see their children die before them. So I can't even imagine where this is going and how you put these two moments together. And yet, what you have here is you have them living out the sacrificial love of God that we call agape. The love that faces the tragedy and continues to love. The love that in faith says, I don't really care what happens, except that I keep loving you in the midst of all this. You can see a hint of Abraham, who would with great joy receive his firstborn and then be asked to sacrifice it, and the angst his wife Sarah must have gone through. And then, most profoundly, you see God himself taking on this kind of twofoldness about this great joy of life, and yet the suffering that love requires somehow for a completion of expression that is articulated in the words of the Gospel of John. God so loved the world that he gave his own Son. And parenthetically, he sacrificed his own Son. In other words, the love of God is not without participating in suffering for the beloved. God himself does it in love for us. And so somehow it's part of the package, mysteriously, for all of us in the way we love one another. Even in our own human experience, if you think about it, the people who you'll understand who really love you, they're the ones who go out of their way for you. And it's not because we look for that selfishly, but that going out of the wayness, that risk to suffer, is part of love. Jesus shows us this on the cross. Mary would confront it so profoundly with the sorrows piercing her heart. And so these show the church what real love is all about, that God would suffer it for us and with us. And yet the prophet Zephaniah says there will be a day when all this suffering will mystically dissolve into a profound joy that is incomparable to any other. Perhaps a very vague analogy could be the suffering of, men can't get this, but you ladies can, the suffering of childbirth, and yet it all dissolves into the joy of having your child in your arms to embrace and cherish. And so God has this hope to experience this joy with each one of us in the kingdom.
Regina Celi, let our reign, alleluia.